Alright guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about for infantry whether you should craft the leadership pants or the eternal knight. We're actually also going to talk about the Karauk humility and how all of those fit together. Now before we start, we're going to quickly cover how base stats work because that's how we do our calculations. So base stats, if you open up your barracks and you go look at your troop stats, right, you're going to see the white stats on the left and then there's going to be the green numbers on the right. This was my barracks towards the end of KBK, so this is full crystal tech. So max, your personal tech, max alliance tech, and the max crystal tech. This is the highest you can get. I guess technically, if you have like the right civilization, you could have some kind of special troop type and get higher base stats. But this is pretty much the end game. Okay, so base stats is that white number on the left. Everything is going to be scaled off of that. So when you get plus 140% total, right, it's not that you just get 140 points of stats. You're actually getting 140% of 220, which in this case will actually be 308. So a lot of people, one common misconception is, oh, they think the legendary shield for the infantry, oh, I just get 20% attack. That's not actually exactly what it is. It depends on what the base stat it is scaling off of. Another thing to think about, I'm not going to cover it too much in this video, but when you upgrade equipment with an iconic crystal, you're always going to get a increase to your base stat, right? Either attack, defense, or health. Right now, for the most part, people just accept that more base health is better than more base stat, but that's not necessarily true. We'll need to do a little bit more testing, but I'll just give you a quick example, right? So if I get +1 base stat to this, you'll get 1 point here, so you'll go to 221, and then you'll get 1.4 points here on the right because you're scaling it up by 140%. In total, you'll actually get 2.4 points of stats. Whereas if you get +1 base health, you'll get 1 point here on the left, but it's only scaling up 56% or 0.56 points, and you'll actually only end up getting 1.56 health. So really the question is, which is better, 2.4 attack or 1.56 health? Now the way Lilith calculates this, they actually round down. So it'll actually be either 2 attack, right, because you round from 2.4 to 2, or 1 health. And that's actually the question. And I'm not sure which one's better. Maybe another content creator will make a video about it, but that's just something to consider. And now let's actually talk about some more relevant stats for this video. Okay, so here on the left is my gear. So you can see right here, all the legendaries have a 1 iconic crystal on it, but not any higher. And then I haven't upgraded my Karauk's humility, right? So here's all the boosts I'm getting from it. Here are the stats. So infantry endgame gear is very defense heavy. And here's the set bonuses. And also with the iconic attributes, you can see I'm getting an increase to my base attack, defense, and health. So without gear and with gear, you can see the base stat actually changes to reflect the iconics, right? But then also the percentage changes to reflect what the gear is giving me. The biggest boost is actually defense. You can see it goes from 98% to 142%. Obviously with gear, I'm going to have a lot more stats. That's all that this is showing. So now, before I go on to the next slide, if I asked you beforehand, would you rather have a special talented Karauk's humility, right? So that's 8% plus 2.5%, 10.5% health, or a leadership pants, which gives you 8% health, with an iconic crystal, which gives you +3 base health, which one would you prefer? 8% health plus 3 base health, right? That's 11, or 10.5% health from the Karauk's humility. I think most people snap judgment will say they would rather have the leadership pants, but as we go to this next slide, you'll see that's actually not necessarily the case. So right, this kind of reflects what I just said. 10.5% health here, 8% plus 3 base health here. The attack's obviously not going to change. The march speed's not going to change. The defense isn't going to change. But when you compare the health, this number actually skews in the favor of the Karauk's humility. So a leadership pants, not special talented with an iconic crystal, will actually perform worse than the Karauk's humility based on the other gear it has. Because a lot of this depends on the other gear. For infantry, it's pretty cut and dry just because there's no real way to get health. So this is pretty cut and dry. Like the Karauk's humility is going to be better with a special talent than leadership pants with Iconic Crystal. Okay, and that was a little surprising to me when I did the calculation, because like, oh, 8 plus 3, that's 11. How is it lower? Well, because the boost to this green part is very low, so you're not even getting a full point per point you're adding, and it actually skews in the favor of more percentage, if that makes sense. Okay, so then this video actually isn't really going to be about whether the leadership pants are better or the Eternal Knight's better. We're going to compare the Karauk's Humility and the Eternal Knight. So before we do that, let me just quickly revisit Wick Gaming's formula he came up with. This isn't the whole formula. There's like a couple multipliers, but this shows a relationship between attack, so the enemy's attack or your attack, versus the enemy's defense and health, right? And it scales by the number of troops. That's why the more troops you have, the more damage you deal. The less troops you have, the less damage you deal. When Wick Gaming went over this, what he found was his formula, he could reliably predict how much damage the enemy was going to take, up to 35,000. And then at 35,000, Lilith introduces some scaling damage multiplier that gets higher and higher, and then he couldn't quite figure that out. And the reason for that, I think, is because as higher and higher troops, if it takes too long to kill off troops, first of all, Lilith can't make money, but also it messes with the balance of the game where it probably feels too clunky, and that's why they did that. But regardless of that damage multiplier, the relationship of attack, defense, and health is still the same. So we could still use this formula to plug in Eternal Knight versus Karauk's Humility and see which one's better. Okay, so here is the Karauk's Humility versus the Eternal Knight. I used 10,000 troops up here. It doesn't really matter which one you use. Technically, I could use like 200,000 or down to like 1,000, right? But it gives a number that's fairly digestible, so I decided to go with 10,000 since it's standard on both sides. It doesn't really matter. 587 is attack, and that's the attack that I just picked off of here. The big difference is going to be the defense and the health. So you can see with the Karauk's Humility, it has 19 points extra of health, but then it has 26 points less of defense, right? That's reflected here. And then the Eternal Knight has a lot more defense and then less health, right? So when you plug this into the formula, the Karauk's Humility spits out a number. It's 22.55 damage taken. Now in this case, the lower the damage you take, the better it is, right? And whereas when you plugged in the Eternal Knight without a special talent with an Iconic Crystal, and you can see there's more base health here than here, the number is actually 29.686 compared to 29.55, so that's actually higher. So this actually proves that the Karauk's Humility with a special talent is better than the Eternal Knight with Iconic Crystal. This isn't some groundbreaking news. You know, I've heard this for probably like a year now, but this is just kind of digging up stuff that other people have proved in the past, and we're just kind of rehashing and showing it. And just for shits and giggles, I calculated the number if this Eternal Knight had a special talent, right? So it goes from plus 12% defense to plus 16% defense. That number goes down to 29.21, and you could say now it's lower than the 29.55. So when Wick Gaming was doing these testings, it was like 2-3 years ago, there was, I don't even know if there was an Iconic Crystal, but there definitely wasn't the Iconic tier system, right? Where you could get up to Iconic 5 now. And now the meta is into special talent, a legendary gear, right? That's out of the meta now. If you get lucky, you get it. That's great. But if you don't get it, you don't actually waste your blueprints material into special talenting it. You actually want to put the material and the blueprints into moving up the Iconic tier system. So the Iconic 2, let me actually go back to that, is going to be the same. Iconic 2 through 5, actually 1 through 5 is going to be the same for the leadership, legs, and the Eternal Knight, so I could show it. But Iconic 2 is actually going to be enemy health ignored at 1%, right? So it's really hard to calculate how that compares to a little bit extra health from the Karauk's Humility. But my sense is that if you could get to Iconic 2 for Eternal Knight, ignoring 1% of the enemy health will put the Eternal Knight above the Karauk's Humility special talented. So first, the Eternal Knight should by far be the last piece of gear you upgrade. But when you do upgrade it, unless you could get Iconic 2, you're actually going to be performing worse on the field. So don't upgrade it until you have enough blueprints and materials to get it. And Eternal Knight is one of those where, like I have 5 blueprints right now for Eternal Knight. Blueprints shouldn't be a problem. It's just it's just something where like the Karauk humility is actually so good, especially the health for infantry, that you want to upgrade that last. Okay, some final conclusions. The leadership pants by itself with an iconic crystal is worse than the Karauk humility. The Eternal Night by itself with an iconic crystal is worse than the Karauk humility if it's special talented. So you should actually stick with a special talented Karauk humility until you can at least get to iconic 2 with the Eternal Night, and you upgrade that last. Now, I've heard some people come up with some theories that maybe you can go for the leadership legs and the leadership boots, because both of those give health, and then you run the KVK weapon and the helm, and then maybe you do the Hope Cloak, and then you do like, was it like Ian's Choice or some infantry glove, try to get more stats. And I looked into it. It does look like you could probably like pump out more stats, but it's not so straightforward, because some of the iconic boosts gives you like attack ignored instead of defense ignored or health ignored. I think it probably is better, but if one, it's not conclusive. But second, and probably most importantly, you miss out on this 4-piece Eternal Empire set bonus, which gives you 10% march speed, which for infantry makes a huge difference. The march speed allows you to be a better player, right? You even if you make a mistake, you can recover better. It also has some defensive or survival like boosts. Like if you get out of position, if you're out of position and you can retreat just a little bit faster, you're going to be taking less hits, so you can actually survive on the field longer. And if enemy is out of position, you can actually chase them down a lot faster. So it's actually really hard to quantify how good 10% march speed is. But my sense is 10% march speed is probably more valuable than what a lot of people think. And with the Eternal Empire set, it's already really good. It's a lot easier to get than the KVK set. I think most people should just go for the 4-piece Eternal Empire set. So if you watch all the way to the end, hopefully you got some value from this. Please like and subscribe to the video. If you have any questions, comments, anything you don't agree with, leave it in the comments. Even if you have some video ideas, we could always use some more inspiration, so leave that there. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a good time. Have a good day.